December 23, 2024. A homeless 14-year-old girl named Kira spent her last $3 buying soup for a dying woman collapsed on a Chicago street corner, completely unaware that this stranger was the long-lost mother of tech billionaire Marcus Holloway, a woman whose family had been searching for her for over a decade. But when Marcus discovered what Kira had done and tried to reward her, a vengeful social worker with dark intentions launched a brutal campaign to destroy them both and claim the inheritance for herself. Would Kira's one act of kindness cost her everything, or would the truth she uncovered save them all? Chicago's wind cut like broken glass through the alley behind Morrison Street. Kira Thompson huddled against the brick wall, her torn jacket doing nothing against the cold. At 14, she had learned to make herself invisible, just another shadow the city ignored. But tonight, something made her look up that an elderly woman lay crumpled on the sidewalk ahead, her body trembling violently. Shoppers rushed past, eyes averted, feet quick. The woman's lips moved soundlessly, her thin coat soaked through from melted snow. Kira's stomach twisted. She had $3.17, money earned from returning bottles all day. It was supposed to buy her dinner, maybe breakfast tomorrow if she stretched it. She stood anyway. "Ma'am?" Kira knelt beside the woman, her voice soft. "Can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered open, clouded with pain and confusion. Her skin was gray, her breathing shallow. "Cold," she whispered. "So cold." Kira pulled off her own jacket, wrapping it around the stranger's shoulders. She looked around desperately, but the crowd kept moving, a river of indifference. She grabbed her phone, the screen cracked but functional, and dialed 911. "There's a woman who collapsed on Morrison Street," Kira said urgently. "She needs help now." While waiting, Kira ran to the corner deli. The owner, Mr. Chun, looked up from his register. "Hot soup," Kira said, sliding her $3 across the counter. "Please, it's an emergency." Mr. Chun studied her, recognizing the desperation. He handed her a container of chicken soup, steam rising from the lid. "Keep your money, kid." But Kira had already left the bills on the counter. She raced back, kneeling beside the woman again. "Here, try to drink this." She lifted the woman's head gently, bringing the warm soup to her lips. The woman swallowed weakly, her eyes filling with tears. "Thank you," she breathed. "What's your name?" "Kira." "Eleanor," the woman whispered. "Eleanor Holloway." Sirens wailed in the distance. But before the ambulance arrived, a sharp voice cut through the cold air. Well, if it isn't Kira Thompson." Kira's blood froze. She looked up to see Vanessa Crane, a social worker from the Department of Children and Family Services. Vanessa's perfectly styled hair and designer coat stood in stark contrast to the grim street. Her smile was bright, false. "Still living on the streets, I see," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "You know this violates the terms of your probation. I could have you back in juvenile detention tonight." "I'm not causing trouble," Kira said quietly. "I'm helping someone." Vanessa crouched down, her eyes scanning Eleanor with cold calculation. "Helping? Or looking for someone to rob?" She pulled out her phone. "I think we need to have a conversation at the station." The ambulance pulled up, paramedics rushing out. As they loaded Eleanor onto a stretcher, the elderly woman reached out weakly. "The girl," Eleanor gasped. "She saved me. Don't let them take her." Vanessa's smile never wavered. "Don't worry, ma'am. We'll take excellent care of her." But Kira saw the flash of something dark in Vanessa's eyes, something that made her skin crawl. As the ambulance doors closed, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. A man stepped out, tall and commanding, his expression tight with worry. He rushed toward the ambulance, but it was already pulling away. "Wait!" he shouted. "That's my mother." Marcus Holloway stood frozen on the sidewalk, watching the ambulance disappear into the snowy night. After 12 years of searching, he had finally found her. And he had no idea that the homeless girl standing in handcuffs had just saved her life. Marcus Holloway burst through the hospital doors, his heart hammering. 12 years. 12 years after his mother had walked out of their family home in Lincoln Park. Her mind was fractured by early-onset dementia and vanished into the city's vast anonymity. Eleanor Holloway, he told the nurse at the intake desk, his voice breaking. She was just brought in by ambulance. The nurse checked her computer. ICU, 3rd floor. But sir, only family. I'm her son. Room 304 was sterile and cold. Eleanor lay motionless, tubes running from her arms, machines beeping steadily. Marcus sank into the chair beside her bed, taking her frail hand in his. Her face was hollow, aged far beyond her 68 years. Mom, he whispered. I never stopped looking. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused. For a moment, she stared at him blankly. Then recognition flickered. Marcus, I'm here. You're safe now. Eleanor's grip tightened weakly. The girl. Where is she? What girl? Kira. She gave me her jacket. Her last money. Tears streamed down Eleanor's weathered cheeks. She didn't walk past like the others. She saw me. Marcus felt his throat tighten. While he had been in his penthouse office closing million-dollar deals, a homeless child had been the one to save his mother's life. I'll find her, he promised. But finding Kira proved harder than expected. By the time Marcus returned to Morrison Street, she was gone. He checked shelters, asked street vendors, called every contact he had. Nothing. It was his assistant, Jordan Blake, who finally tracked her down 3 days later. She's in the youth detention center in South Halsted, Jordan reported grimly. The social worker who arrested her filed charges. Trespassing, loitering, violating probation. Marcus's jaw clenched. Get me everything on this social worker. At the detention center, Kira sat alone in a cold holding cell. She'd been here before. After her mother died 2 years ago, she'd run from foster care repeatedly. The system had labeled her difficult, unmanageable. She didn't tell them about the bruises from her last foster home. She just ran. The door opened. A guard stood aside as Marcus entered, his expensive suit out of place in the gray concrete room. Kira looked up warily, recognizing him from the street. You're the man looking for his mother, she said quietly. Marcus sat across from her, studying the girl who had shown more humanity than most adults. Eleanor is stable. Because of you. Kira shrugged, uncomfortable. Anyone would have helped, but they didn't. You did. Marcus leaned forward. You spent your last money on soup for a stranger. She needed it more than me. The simple truth of it hit Marcus hard. This child, with nothing, had given everything. How long have you been on the streets? Long enough. And this social worker, Vanessa Crane. You know her. Kira's expression darkened. She's been tracking me since I ran from my last placement. She keeps threatening to lock me up permanently. She met his eyes. She doesn't care about helping kids. She just wants to look good on paper. Marcus pulled out his phone. I'm getting you out of here. You can't. I'm a ward of the state. Then I'll change that. His voice carried absolute certainty. You saved my mother's life, Kira. Now let me save yours. For the first time in years, Kira felt something dangerous bloom in her chest. Hope. The conference room at the Department of Children and Family Services smelled of stale coffee and bureaucracy. Marcus sat across from Vanessa Crane, his lawyer Patricia Mendez beside him. Vanessa's smile was practiced, her posture relaxed as if she held all the cards. Mr. Holloway, Vanessa began, her tone sugary. I understand you're grateful to Kira for helping your mother. That's admirable. But gratitude doesn't override state custody laws. Patricia slid a document across the table. My client is petitioning for emergency guardianship. Kira Thompson is currently detained on charges that are questionable at best. Vanessa's smile didn't waver. Questionable? The girl has a history of running away, violating probation, and refusing to comply with court-ordered placements. She's been through 6 foster homes in 2 years. Because those homes were abusive, Marcus said, his voice tight. According to her, Mr. Holloway, troubled children often make accusations when they don't get their way. Vanessa opened a file, flipping through pages with theatrical precision. Kira has behavioral issues, authority problems, and a pattern of deception. The state has invested considerable resources trying to help her. Patricia leaned forward. Then why is she in detention instead of a therapeutic placement? For her own protection. She's a flight risk. Marcus's hands clenched beneath the table. Everything about this woman felt wrong. The rehearsed concern, the clinical dismissal of Kira's suffering, the way she wielded her authority like a weapon. I want to meet with Kira's case supervisor, Marcus said. Vanessa's expression flickered, just for an instant. I am her case supervisor. Then I want to speak with your superior. Mr. Holloway, I understand you're accustomed to getting what you want. But this isn't a business deal. This is a child's welfare. Vanessa stood, smoothing her skirt. I'll review your petition, but I can tell you right now. A single man with no childcare experience, no relationship to the minor, and a demanding career? That's not a suitable placement. After they left, Patricia turned to Marcus in the parking lot. She's hiding something. That whole performance was too polished. Find out what, Marcus said. I don't care what it costs. At Chicago Memorial Hospital, Eleanor was sitting up for the first time, color returning to her cheeks. Marcus had arranged for round-the-clock care, the best doctor's money could buy. But when he entered her room, she wasn't asking about her treatment. Did you find Kira? Marcus pulled a chair close. She's in detention. I'm working on getting her out. Eleanor's face crumpled. That precious child is locked up? After what she did. The social worker handling her case is blocking me. Claims Kira's too troubled for placement. Troubled? Eleanor's voice sharpened with surprising strength. That girl saved my life when the whole city walked past. There's nothing troubled about compassion. Marcus squeezed her hand. I know, Mom, but the system doesn't work on compassion. It works on documentation, and apparently, Vanessa Crane has documented everything perfectly. Then document better. The next morning, Patricia arrived at Marcus's office with a thick folder. I dug into Vanessa Crane's history. She's been with DCFS for 8 years, supervising 43 cases. But here's what's interesting: 6 children under her supervision have been placed in the same private group home in the past 18 months. Marcus looked up sharply. That's unusual? Very. Most caseworkers spread placements across multiple facilities to avoid conflicts of interest. Patricia pulled out financial records. The group home is called Riverside Youth Center. It's run by Thomas Gaines, and it receives significant state funding, about $8,000 per month per child. You think she's getting kickbacks? I think it's worth investigating. But there's more. Patricia laid out another document. Vanessa's been the primary caseworker for every child she's placed there, and complaints about the facility have been filed. Neglect, inadequate supervision, missing medication. But every investigation gets closed with Vanessa's recommendation. Marcus felt cold fury settle in his chest. She's trafficking children into a facility that's abusing them and covering it up for money. We need proof. Right now, it's just patterns. Then we get proof. That afternoon, Marcus hired a private investigator named Lou Fernandez, a former Chicago PD detective with a reputation for uncovering what people wanted buried. Lou listened to the evidence, his weathered face impassive. Group homes are hard to crack, Lou warned. They're licensed facilities. Can't just walk in with a camera. But employees talk, especially underpaid ones. Lou tapped his pen against his notebook. Give me a week. Meanwhile, Judge Helena Ostrowski reviewed Marcus's emergency guardianship petition in her chambers. She was a stern woman in her 60s, known for her no-nonsense approach to child welfare cases. Vanessa sat opposite her, files spread across the desk. Ms. Crane, you're opposing this petition. Explain why. Your Honor, while Mr. Holloway's intentions may be good, he has no experience with at-risk youth. Kira needs structure, therapy, and consistent boundaries. She needs professionals, not a wealthy benefactor playing savior. Judge Ostrowski studied the file. The girl saved his mother's life, and we're all grateful. But gratitude isn't a foundation for guardianship. Kira has complex trauma. She requires specialized care. Like the care she's receiving in detention? Vanessa didn't miss a beat. Detention is temporary, Your Honor. I'm arranging placement at Riverside Youth Center, a facility equipped to handle her needs. The judge's eyes narrowed. I'll hear arguments from both sides next week. Until then, Kira remains in state custody. She looked directly at Vanessa. But I want a full review of her case file. Every placement, every complaint, every incident report. Vanessa's smile tightened. Of course, Your Honor. Walking out of the courthouse, Vanessa pulled out her phone and dialed quickly. We have a problem, she said quietly. Holloway's pushing too hard. We need to move the girl to Riverside before he digs deeper. On the other end, Thomas Gaines's voice was smooth. Then move her. Once she's in the facility, he'll have no access. And if he keeps digging, let him dig. He'll find nothing but paperwork. We've been careful. Vanessa ended the call, her mind already working through contingencies. Marcus Holloway had money and resources, but she had something more valuable. Control over the system itself. Back at the detention center, Kira lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. She'd heard guards talking, something about a transfer to a group home. Her stomach twisted with familiar dread. She'd heard about Riverside from other kids in the system. Nothing good ever came from there. But in the darkness, she held onto Marcus's promise. He'd said he would get her out. She just had to survive long enough to see if he meant it. Lou Fernandez sat in a dim corner booth at a South Side diner, across from a woman in her early 30s wearing scrubs. Her name was Ashley Monroe, and her hands trembled as she wrapped them around a coffee cup. I don't want to lose my job, Ashley whispered. You won't. I'll protect your identity. Lou slid a recording device across the table. Just tell me what happens at Riverside. Ashley glanced toward the door, then back at Lou. The kids aren't treated right. Medication gets skipped, meals are cheap processed stuff, and Mr. Gaines runs it like a prison, not a home. Kids who complain get isolated or sedated. How many children are there now? 23. But most of them came through the same caseworker, Vanessa Crane. She brings them in, tells Gaines they're difficult cases, and he gets paid extra for specialized behavioral support. Ashley's voice dropped. But there's no support, just control. Have you reported this? 3 times. To the state licensing board. But every inspection, Ms. Crane shows up personally. The facility gets cleaned up, and the report says everything's fine. Ashley's eyes filled with tears. Those kids are trapped, and nobody believes them. Lou leaned forward. I believe them, and I'm going to make sure others do too. Across town, Marcus sat in his penthouse office, staring at financial records spread across his desk. Jordan had traced payment trails, money flowing from state coffers to Riverside Youth Center, then smaller amounts being funneled into offshore accounts linked to shell corporations. One of those corporations listed Vanessa Crane's brother as CEO. She's not just taking kickbacks, Jordan said, pointing at the highlighted figures. She's built an entire operation. The more kids she places at Riverside, the more state funding flows in, and a percentage gets skimmed off the top. Marcus's phone buzzed. Patricia's name flashed on the screen. We've got something, Patricia said without preamble. Former Riverside employee willing to testify. But Marcus, they're moving fast. Vanessa filed transfer papers for Kira this morning. She'll be at Riverside by tomorrow afternoon. File for an emergency injunction. Already done. The hearing is at 4 o'clock today. But you need to be ready. Vanessa's going to paint you as an obsessive billionaire with a savior complex. Marcus ended the call and grabbed his coat. At the hospital, he found Eleanor sitting up, working through a crossword puzzle. Her recovery had been remarkable, her mind clearing as her body healed. You look like you're going to war, Eleanor observed. The hearing is today. They're trying to transfer Kira to a facility that's been abusing kids for profit. Eleanor set down her pencil, her expression fierce. Then I'm testifying. Mom, you're still recovering. That girl saved my life when I was dying in the street, Marcus. The least I can do is tell the truth about who she is. Eleanor's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I may have lost 12 years to this disease, but my memory of that night is crystal clear, and I'm not letting them destroy her. The emergency hearing convened in a packed courtroom. Judge Ostrowski presided, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Vanessa sat with Thomas Gaines beside her, both projecting calm confidence. Marcus and Patricia took their seats, with Lou Fernandez in the gallery, his testimony prepared. Ms. Crane, the judge began, explain why you've expedited this transfer. Vanessa stood gracefully. Your Honor, Kira Thompson requires immediate placement in a structured therapeutic environment. Detention is not appropriate long-term housing, and Mr. Holloway's petition is still under review. Riverside Youth Center has an opening and specializes in at-risk adolescents. Patricia rose. Your Honor, we have evidence that Riverside Youth Center is under investigation for neglect and financial impropriety. Placing Kira there would put her in immediate danger. Vanessa's smile didn't falter. Those allegations are unsubstantiated rumors spread by disgruntled former employees. Riverside maintains full state licensing and has passed every inspection. Inspections supervised by you, Patricia countered, dropping a folder on the table. We have documentation showing that you personally oversee every inspection of Riverside, despite it being a conflict of interest. We also have financial records showing payments from entities connected to Riverside flowing to your family members. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Vanessa's composure cracked for half a second before she recovered. Those records are misrepresentations. My brother owns a consulting firm that happens to work with multiple youth facilities. Your Honor, I'd like to call a witness, Patricia interrupted. Ashley Monroe, licensed practical nurse at Riverside Youth Center. Ashley walked to the stand, her nervousness visible but her voice steady as she was sworn in. She detailed the conditions at Riverside, the neglect, the falsified medication logs, the children who showed signs of abuse that were never reported. And Ms. Crane, Patricia asked, was she aware of these conditions? She had to be. She visited weekly, saw the same things I did, but every report she filed said the facility was exemplary. Vanessa shot to her feet. This woman was fired for incompetence. I resigned, Ashley said firmly, because I couldn't watch children suffer anymore. Judge Ostrowski raised her hand in silence. Ms. Crane, I'm ordering an immediate independent investigation of Riverside Youth Center. Until that investigation is complete, no child will be transferred there. Her gaze hardened. And I'm removing you from Kira Thompson's case, effective immediately. Vanessa's mask shattered completely. Your Honor, this is outrageous. One more word, and I'll hold you in contempt. The judge turned to Marcus. Mr. Holloway, I'm granting temporary emergency guardianship pending full review. Kira will be released into your custody today, with oversight from a newly assigned caseworker. Marcus felt relief flood through him, but he kept his expression neutral. Across the aisle, Vanessa's eyes burned with cold fury. She leaned toward Thomas Gaines, whispering something sharp and quick. Gaines nodded, his jaw tight. As the courtroom emptied, Lou caught Marcus in the hallway. That went better than expected, but watch your back. Vanessa Crane doesn't strike me as someone who accepts defeat. Neither am I, Marcus said. At the detention center, Kira was told she was being released. She didn't believe it until she saw Marcus walking toward her holding cell, papers in hand. When the guard unlocked the door, she stepped out cautiously, half expecting it to be a trick. You're coming home with me, Marcus said gently. Kira's voice was small. Home? Yes. For real this time. For the first time since her mother died, Kira let herself cry. Not from pain, but from the fragile, terrifying possibility that someone actually meant what they promised. Marcus's penthouse overlooked Lake Michigan, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the Chicago skyline. Kira stood in the entryway, overwhelmed by the sheer space. Her entire world for the past 2 years could have fit in the living room alone. Your room is down this hall, Marcus said, leading her past artwork that probably cost more than most houses. He opened a door to reveal a bedroom decorated in soft blues and grays, with an actual bed that had pillows, a desk by the window, and bookshelves waiting to be filled. Kira touched the comforter hesitantly, as if it might disappear. Is this really mine? It's really yours. That night, Marcus's housekeeper, Carmen Rodriguez, prepared dinner, roasted chicken, vegetables, fresh bread. Kira ate slowly, methodically, the way people who've known hunger always do. Marcus watched her, his chest tight with anger at a system that had failed her so completely. Tomorrow we'll go see Eleanor, he said. She's been asking about you constantly. Kira looked up, fork paused midair. Is she really okay? Getting stronger every day. Because of you. The next morning at the hospital, Eleanor's face lit up when Kira entered. She opened her arms, and Kira hesitated only a moment before accepting the embrace. There's my angel, Eleanor whispered, tears streaming. They told me what you've been through, what you're still going through. Kira pulled back, uncomfortable with praise. I just gave you soup. You gave me life. Eleanor cupped Kira's face gently. And now we're going to fight for yours. But the peace was short-lived. 3 days later, Patricia called Marcus with urgent news. Vanessa filed a counterpetition. She's claiming you coerced the judge, manipulated evidence, and that Kira's placement with you is dangerous and inappropriate. On what grounds? She's alleging that you're exploiting Kira for positive publicity, using her story to rehabilitate your image after some negative business press last year. She's also claiming Eleanor's testimony was unreliable due to her medical condition. Marcus felt rage surge through him. That's insane. It's a strategy. She's cornered and desperate. The hearing is scheduled for next week, and Marcus, she's bringing the media. This is going to be public. The day of the hearing arrived with camera crews lining the courthouse steps. Reporters shouted questions as Marcus and Kira arrived, Patricia shielding them both. Mr. Holloway, are you using this child for publicity? Kira, are you being coerced? Inside, the courtroom was packed. Vanessa sat with a new attorney, Vincent Russo, known for his aggressive tactics and media manipulation. Thomas Gaines sat behind them, his expression smug. Judge Ostrowski took her seat, her face stern. This is a custody hearing, not a circus. I will tolerate no disruptions. Russo stood immediately, his voice booming. Your Honor, this case represents a dangerous precedent. A wealthy individual using his resources to circumvent established child welfare protocols. My client, Ms. Crane, has served the state honorably for 8 years. Yet one unsubstantiated allegation from a disgruntled employee has destroyed her reputation and career. Patricia rose, her voice calm but cutting. Your Honor, the allegations are far from unsubstantiated. We have financial records, witness testimony, and documentation of systematic abuse at Riverside Youth Center, a facility Ms. Crane personally endorsed and profited from. Russo waved dismissively. Circumstantial connections and hearsay. What we have is a clear pattern. Mr. Holloway meets a homeless girl, his mother recovers, and suddenly he's positioning himself as her savior. It's a compelling narrative, but it's manipulation. Objection, Patricia snapped. Counsel is editorializing. Sustained, Judge Ostrowski said. Mr. Russo, present evidence, not commentary. Russo called his first witness, Thomas Gaines. The Riverside director took the stand, his appearance carefully cultivated to project trustworthiness. Mr. Gaines, how long have you operated Riverside Youth Center? 12 years, Your Honor. We've housed and rehabilitated over 300 at-risk youth. And these allegations of abuse, are they accurate? Gaines shook his head sadly. Absolutely not. We maintain the highest standards of care. Unfortunately, troubled teenagers sometimes fabricate stories when they don't get their way. It's a common pattern in residential facilities. Patricia's cross-examination was surgical. Mr. Gaines, how do you explain the medication discrepancies documented by the State Pharmacy Board? Gaines hesitated. Administrative errors, nothing more. Administrative errors that resulted in children not receiving prescribed psychiatric medications for weeks at a time? We've implemented new protocols. And the financial records showing irregular payments to offshore accounts? My business arrangements are confidential and completely legal. Even when those arrangements involve kickbacks from a state employee? Objection, Russo shouted. Speculation. Judge Ostrowski leaned forward. I'll allow it. Mr. Gaines, answer the question. Gaines's composure cracked. I have done nothing illegal. Ms. Crane is a professional associate, nothing more. Next, Vanessa took the stand. She was polished, every word calculated. Ms. Crane, Russo began, why did you recommend Riverside for Kira's placement? Because it offered the specialized care she needed. Kira has significant trauma and behavioral challenges that require professional intervention. Patricia stood for cross-examination, her expression neutral. Ms. Crane, how many children have you placed at Riverside in the past 18 months? I don't have exact numbers. 27. All children you personally supervised. Patricia laid out documents. And during that same period, how much did your brother's consulting firm receive from entities connected to Riverside? Vanessa's jaw tightened. My brother's business has nothing to do with my casework. Nothing? Even though payments totaling $340,000 flowed through his accounts immediately after each placement. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Vanessa's hands clenched the witness stand. Those are legitimate business transactions. For services never rendered. We have emails, Ms. Crane. Communications between you, your brother, and Mr. Gaines discussing inventory and units. You were trafficking children for profit. That's a lie. Vanessa's voice rose, her composure finally shattering. I dedicated my career to helping troubled kids like Kira, ungrateful, manipulative children who destroy everything they touch. Judge Ostrowski's gavel cracked down. Ms. Crane, control yourself. But Vanessa was beyond control. She pointed at Kira, her face twisted with rage. She's playing you all. That little street rat knows exactly how to work people for sympathy. She saved an old woman? Please. She probably saw an opportunity and took it. Kira shrank in her seat, tears streaming down her face. Marcus placed a protective hand on her shoulder. That's enough. The judge's voice thundered through the courtroom. Ms. Crane, you are in contempt. Bailiff, remove her. As Vanessa was escorted out, still shouting, the judge turned to the courtroom. I will review all evidence submitted and issue a ruling within 48 hours. But let me be clear, what I've witnessed today has deeply troubled this court. Outside, the media swarmed, but Marcus ignored them, kneeling beside Kira on the courthouse steps. She was wrong, he said firmly. About all of it. Kira wiped her eyes. What if people believe her? They won't, because the truth is stronger than her lies. But as they drove away, Marcus saw Vanessa being released on bail, her eyes following their car with cold, calculated fury. This wasn't over. 2 days after Vanessa's courtroom meltdown, Lou Fernandez knocked on Marcus's office door at midnight. His expression was grim. We've got a problem. Vanessa made bail and disappeared. She cleaned out her apartment, closed her bank accounts, and her phone's off the grid. Marcus looked up from the legal documents he'd been reviewing. She's running. Or planning something worse. Lou dropped a folder on the desk. But I've got what you need to finish this. The FBI Financial Crimes Division has been building a case against Riverside for 6 months. They've been watching the money trail, and when our evidence surfaced, they accelerated their timeline. They're raiding Riverside tomorrow morning. Does Patricia know? She's coordinating with the federal prosecutor now. But Marcus, Lou's voice lowered. Vanessa knows her world is collapsing. Desperate people do desperate things. At the penthouse, Carmen was making hot chocolate for Kira when the building's security system beeped. Marcus checked the monitor. Nothing unusual in the lobby or parking garage. But something felt wrong. Carmen, take Kira to the safe room. What's happening? Kira asked, fear creeping into her voice. Just a precaution. Marcus kept his tone calm, but his hand was already on his phone, dialing security. That's when the elevator doors opened on the penthouse floor. Vanessa Crane stepped out, her designer clothes rumpled, her hair disheveled. In her hand was a thick manila envelope. Her smile was unhinged, dangerous. "Hello, Marcus." Marcus positioned himself between Vanessa and the hallway where Carmen had taken Kira. "You're violating a restraining order. Security is already on their way." "Oh, I know. I don't have much time." Vanessa's laugh was brittle. "But I had to deliver this personally." She threw the envelope at his feet. "Adoption papers. For Kira. Signed by her biological father before he died." Marcus's blood went cold. "What are you talking about? Kira's father is dead. Her mother raised her alone. Her mother lied." Vanessa's eyes gleamed with malice. "Kira's father was Jonathan Reed, a construction worker who signed away his parental rights when she was born. He died 3 years ago, but before he did, he named me as Kira's legal guardian in his will. I've had a legal claim to her this entire time." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check the papers. They're notarized, filed with the state. Everything legal and binding." Vanessa's voice rose, manic. "You thought you could take her from me? She was always mine. The system gave her to me, and I can do whatever I want with her, including placing her at Riverside permanently." The elevator dinged again. Building security rushed out, but Vanessa didn't resist as they grabbed her arms. She just kept laughing, her voice echoing through the penthouse. "You can't save her, Holloway. The law is on my side." After they dragged her away, Marcus picked up the envelope with shaking hands. Inside were documents that looked devastatingly legitimate: birth certificates, custody agreements, a will. If these were real, everything they'd fought for could be destroyed. He called Patricia immediately. She arrived within the hour, her legal team in tow. They spread the documents across Marcus's dining table, examining every page under harsh light. "It's a forgery," Patricia said finally, pointing to the notary stamp. "A good one, but look, the seal number doesn't match Illinois notary records for that year. And the signature on the custody agreement? It's traced, not original. You can see the hesitation marks." Marcus exhaled, relief flooding through him. "So it's worthless." "Legally, yes, but Vanessa planned to file these tomorrow morning before the ruling. She was going to create enough confusion to delay everything, maybe indefinitely." Patricia's expression was fierce. "We need to move first." The next morning, the FBI raid on Riverside Youth Center made national news. Federal agents removed boxes of financial records, hard drives, and interviewed every staff member. By noon, Thomas Gaines was arrested on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and child endangerment. By evening, Vanessa Crane was apprehended at O'Hare Airport trying to board a flight to Mexico. She was charged with forgery, fraud, conspiracy, child trafficking, and a dozen other felonies. The final custody hearing convened 48 hours later. The courtroom was quieter this time, the media circus replaced by somber observers who understood they were witnessing justice finally being served. Judge Ostrowski reviewed the mountain of evidence before her: financial records, witness testimonies, the FBI's findings, and the forged documents Vanessa had attempted to use. "I have presided over family court for 23 years, the judge began, her voice heavy with disgust. "I have seen neglect, I have seen abuse, and I have seen systemic failures. But rarely have I seen such calculated, malicious exploitation of vulnerable children for personal gain." She turned to where Vanessa sat in an orange detention jumpsuit, flanked by federal marshals. "Ms. Crane, you betrayed every principle of child welfare. You trafficked children to a facility you knew was abusive, falsified records to cover your crimes, and when confronted, you attempted to forge legal documents to maintain control over a child you saw as property." Judge Ostrowski's voice was steel. "Your parental rights are terminated permanently. You are barred from ever working with children again. And I am recommending the maximum sentence for every charge against you." Vanessa stared straight ahead, her expression blank, defeated. The judge turned to Marcus and Kira. "Mr. Holloway, I am granting you full legal guardianship of Kira Thompson, effective immediately. The state recognizes that you have provided her with safety, stability, and genuine care. Everything she was denied by the system meant to protect her. She looked at Kira directly. "Young lady, you showed extraordinary courage throughout this ordeal. You saved a life, and in doing so, you changed many others. I hope you know how remarkable you are." Kira nodded, tears streaming down her face. Marcus squeezed her hand. Furthermore, the judge continued, "I am ordering a full investigation into DCFS protocols and oversight. What happened here must never happen again." The gavel fell with finality. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions, but Marcus and Kira walked past them in silence. At the hospital, Eleanor was waiting, discharged and ready to go home for the first time in weeks. When she saw them, her face broke into a radiant smile. "My family," she whispered, embracing them both. That evening, in Marcus's penthouse, Carmen prepared a celebration dinner. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, color fully returned to her cheeks. Marcus and Kira sat on either side, the three of them forming something that hadn't existed before. A family forged not by blood, but by compassion, courage, and an unwavering commitment to do what was right. Kira looked around the table, at the people who had fought for her when the entire system had failed, and for the first time in years, she felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. She felt home. 6 months later, spring had transformed Chicago. The harsh winter that had nearly claimed Eleanor's life felt like a distant memory, replaced by blooming flowers in Millennium Park and warm sunshine reflecting off Lake Michigan. Kira stood in front of Lincoln Middle School, her backpack slung over one shoulder, watching other students stream through the entrance. 6 months ago, she'd been sleeping in alleys. Now she was enrolled in 7th grade, her records cleaned up, her transcript showing a fresh start. "You ready?" Marcus asked from beside her. Kira took a deep breath. "What if they ask about it before? About where I came from? Then you tell them as much or as little as you want. Your past doesn't define you, Kira. What you do from here does." She nodded, squaring her shoulders, and walked through the doors. That afternoon, Marcus sat in his office reviewing quarterly reports, but his mind kept drifting to the photo on his desk. Him, Eleanor, and Kira at Navy Pier, all three laughing at something Carmen had said while taking the picture. His assistant Jordan knocked softly. "The Chicago Tribune wants an interview about the DCFS reforms," Jordan said. "They're calling you the catalyst for the biggest overhaul in the department's history." Marcus shook his head. "Tell them I'm not interested. This was never about publicity." "They also want to interview Kira." "Absolutely not. She's a kid trying to have a normal life. She's not a story." Jordan smiled. "I figured you'd say that. Already declined on your behalf." After work, Marcus stopped by Eleanor's new apartment in Lincoln Park, a comfortable 2-bedroom place with large windows and a small garden she'd already started planting. She greeted him at the door, her hair styled, her eyes bright and clear. "Kira called me from school today," Eleanor said, leading him to the kitchen where fresh lemonade waited. "She made a friend, a girl named Sophia who's in her English class." Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest. "That's wonderful." She sounded happy, Marcus. "Really happy." Eleanor poured them both glasses. "When I think about where she was 6 months ago, freezing and alone, giving away her last dollars to save a stranger," her voice caught. "God sent her to me that night. I'm certain of it. She saved your life, and you saved hers." Eleanor reached across the table, squeezing his hand. "We're all saving each other, aren't we?" That evening, the three of them gathered at Marcus's penthouse for dinner, a weekly tradition they'd established. Carmen had prepared Kira's favorite, lasagna with garlic bread. As they ate, Kira chatted about her classes, her teachers, the drama of middle school social dynamics. Marcus watched her, marveling at the transformation. The guarded, frightened girl who'd barely spoken 6 months ago was now animated, expressive, alive. She was gaining weight, her face fuller and healthier. The shadows under her eyes had disappeared. "Oh, I forgot to tell you," Kira said suddenly. "My English teacher wants us to write an essay about someone who changed our lives." She looked at Marcus and Eleanor. "I don't even know where to start." Eleanor smiled gently. Start with the truth. That's always the best place. Later, after Eleanor had gone home and Kira was in her room doing homework, Marcus stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the city lights. Lou Fernandez had called earlier with updates. Vanessa Crane had been sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Thomas Gaines got 25. Riverside Youth Center had been permanently shut down, its former residents relocated to properly vetted facilities. The system was changing. Slowly, imperfectly, but changing. Carmen approached quietly, carrying a cup of coffee. "You look thoughtful, Mr. Holloway." "Just reflecting on how much has changed. That girl in there. She's changed you too." Carmen's voice was warm. "This penthouse used to feel like a museum. Now it feels like a home." She was right. The pristine, untouchable quality that had defined his life before was gone. Now there were Kira's sneakers by the door, her drawings magnet to the refrigerator, her laughter echoing through the hallways. The emptiness that had consumed him after losing his daughter hadn't disappeared. Grief never truly does, but it had transformed into something else. Purpose, connection, family. 2 weeks later, Marcus attended a DCFS Oversight Committee meeting as a civilian advisor. The reforms they'd fought for were being implemented. Independent inspections of all group homes, mandatory rotation of caseworkers to prevent conflicts of interest, financial audits, and most importantly, a direct hotline for children to report abuse without going through their assigned caseworkers. "These changes will save lives," the committee chair said, addressing the room. "Because one man refused to walk past a dying woman, and one girl refused to let injustice stand." After the meeting, Patricia pulled Marcus aside. "I got a call from a family in Naperville. They saw the news coverage about Kira's case. Their teenage son is trapped in an abusive foster situation, and the caseworker won't listen. They asked if you could help." Marcus felt the weight of that request. He couldn't save every child in a broken system, but he could try. "Get me the details," he said. That Sunday, Marcus took Kira and Eleanor to the spot where everything had begun, Morrison Street. The alley looked different in spring sunshine, less threatening, almost ordinary. But Kira stood silently, staring at the sidewalk where Eleanor had nearly died. "I was so scared that night," Kira said softly. "I didn't know if the ambulance would come in time. I didn't know if she'd survive." She looked at Eleanor. "I didn't know you'd save me back." Eleanor pulled her into a hug. "We saved each other, sweetheart." Marcus placed a hand on Kira's shoulder. "You made a choice that night. You could have walked past like everyone else. But you didn't. You saw someone suffering and you acted. That's who you are, Kira. Someone who stands up when it matters." Kira wiped her eyes, then smiled. "Can we go get pizza? I'm starving." They laughed, the heaviness lifting, and walked toward the car together. A family formed not by blood or law, but by compassion, courage, and the simple choice to not walk past someone in need.